Beyond the surface, beneath the mundane glow of your everyday browser, lies another web. A place of shadows, whispers, and unspeakable truths. Welcome, intrepid clicker, to Nightmare True Horror. Tonight, we delve into 7 true tales dragged from the abyssal depths of the internet, where anonymity breeds monstrosity. What dark corners of the digital world have you dared to explore? Share your most unsettling online discoveries, your tales of digital dread, in the comments below. Let the void echo with your fears. And if you crave further expeditions into these hidden realms, ensure you are subscribed, for the doors to Nightmare True Horror are merely nodes in a vast, terrifying network. And new pathways are always being uncovered. Brace yourselves. These stories are not urban legends. They are cautionary tales from the digital frontier. And the final, chilling revelation often lurks just beyond the next hyperlink. When you least expect it, let the connection begin. I never thought a stupid online game would destroy my family. But that's the thing about evil. It doesn't announce itself with dramatic music or warning signs. It arrives disguised as something harmless, something you'd scroll past without a second thought. My brother Tyler was 12 when he found the game. Just a normal kid, obsessed with YouTube gaming channels and indie horror games. I was home from college for summer break, mostly ignoring him while trying to salvage what remained of my social life after a brutal freshman year. "Matt, check this out," Tyler called from the glow of his computer screen one evening. "This website's got all these weird games no one's ever heard of." I barely glanced up from my phone. "Cool. Seriously, look. This one doesn't even have a title. Just a black screen with a play button. Maybe if I paid more attention then. Maybe if I'd asked more questions. Maybe." Tyler clicked the unmarked game, and his screen flickered before displaying a simple green text interface against black, like something from the 80s. No graphics, no soundtrack, just text. "Welcome. Initializing connection." Probably another one of those retro text adventures, I mumbled, already losing interest. A chat window popped open in the corner. A single line of text appeared. "Do you want to see someone disappear?" Tyler laughed. "Creepy? Should I say yes?" I shrugged, scrolling through Instagram. "Whatever. It's just some lame shock game." He typed, "Yes." The response was immediate. "Perfect. What's your name?" Before I could stop him, Tyler had already typed his real name. The chat paused for nearly 30 seconds before responding. "Hello, Tyler. My name is Watchman. I've been looking for someone like you. Someone special who can help me. Do you want to play a game?" A chill ran down my spine. Something about the phrasing felt off. "Hey, maybe don't give out personal info to random chatbots," I said, finally looking up. Tyler rolled his eyes. "It's just a game, Matt." "Yes," he typed. "Excellent. I'll show you someone who will disappear soon. But first, prove you're worthy. Tell me someone you'd like to see gone." Tyler hesitated, then with a mischievous grin typed, "My math teacher, Mrs. Keller." I laughed despite myself. Mrs. Keller was notorious in our town. A joyless tyrant who'd failed half her class last year. The response took longer this time. "Jennifer Keller, 42. Lives alone at 1582 Maple Drive with 2 cats. Drives a blue Honda Civic. Interesting choice." My stomach dropped. "How does it know that?" I grabbed the mouse from Tyler's hand. "Close this. Now, it's probably just guessing," Tyler protested. "Or maybe it's made by someone from school." Before I could close the window, another message appeared. "Want to see her? I'm watching her right now." The screen changed to a grainy video feed. A woman who looked remarkably like Mrs. Keller, moving around what appeared to be a kitchen. The timestamp in the corner showed it was live. "This isn't funny anymore," I said, forcefully closing the browser. "That's stalking. It's illegal." Tyler looked pale. "Do you think it's really her?" "No." I lied. "It's just some creepy prank." I made Tyler promise not to revisit the site, and he agreed, seemingly shaken. I should have told our parents, should have reported it to someone. But who would believe us? A website that somehow streams live footage of people you name. It sounded insane. 3 days later, Mrs. Keller didn't show up for the summer school class she was teaching. By evening, her disappearance was all over local news. Security footage showed her leaving school, getting into her Honda, and then nothing. She vanished. Tyler was inconsolable, convinced he was somehow responsible. "The game," he kept whispering. "It was the game. It's just a coincidence," I insisted. though doubt not at my confidence. Weird timing, that's all. That night, I found Tyler back on his computer. The black screen with green text glowing in his dark bedroom. Did you enjoy watching her disappear, Tyler? Ready for the next one? My hands shook as I yanked the power cord from the wall. What are you doing? I hissed. You promised. Tears streamed down his face. It keeps opening by itself. It keeps opening by itself. I close it and it comes back. I didn't believe him. Not then. I thought he was just morbidly curious, drawn back to the site by the terrible coincidence. I took his computer away, told him he was grounded from electronics. The next morning, my own laptop greeted me with a black screen and green text when I opened it. Hello, Matt. Tyler told me about you. Would you like to play too? I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing. This wasn't possible. Browsers don't open by themselves. Websites don't follow you from device to device. Unless someone had installed something. Unless we were being targeted. I scanned both our computers for malware, but found nothing. I changed our Wi-Fi password. Set up new accounts. Nothing helped. The game found us regardless, appearing randomly on screens throughout the house. Who should disappear next, Matt? Your choice this time. I didn't respond. Ever, but the messages kept coming. Not feeling cooperative. That's okay. I'll choose for you. A week after Mrs. Keller vanished, Tyler's best friend, Danny, disappeared walking home from summer camp. The police found his backpack by the side of the road, his phone still inside. No signs of struggle, no witnesses. Tyler became a shell of himself, refusing to speak, barely eating. I stayed up nights researching similar cases, looking for connections between Mrs. Keller and Danny, searching desperately for the website that started it all. But it seemed to exist only on our devices, with no URL, no way to trace it. Then came the photos. They appeared in our family's shared cloud storage. Images of Mrs. Keller and Danny, clearly unconscious, in a concrete room with no windows. No way to identify the location, just proof they were taken. I went to the police with everything. The website, the chat logs, the photos. They took me seriously at first, especially with 2 missing persons connected to us. Cyber crimes units from both local and state agencies got involved, but they found nothing. No trace of the website. No sign of the photos I downloaded, as if they'd never existed. One detective even suggested that Tyler and I might be involved in the disappearances, creating an elaborate story to cover our tracks. Our parents began looking at us differently, with fear in their eyes. 3 weeks after it all began, I woke to find Tyler's bed empty. His window was open. The screen popped out. On his pillow, a handwritten note. I'm going to fix this. Watchman says if I meet him, he'll let them go. Don't try to find me. I screamed for our parents. The house erupted in chaos. Calls to police, search parties formed, Tyler's face plastered across local news. But I knew we wouldn't find him. Not unless Watchman wanted us to. That night, alone in my room while my parents finally collapsed from exhaustion, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. 3 now. Want to see them? Attached was a video. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Mrs. Keller, Danny, and Tyler sat against a wall. Eyes vacant, but alive. A modulated voice spoke from behind the camera. Hello, Matt. Your brother made a noble sacrifice, but the game isn't over. The camera panned to show a wall of monitors, dozens of them, each displaying different homes. Different people going about their lives, unaware they were being watched. Every player brings me new targets, new possibilities. Tyler gave me you. Who will you give me? The video ended with a close-up of Tyler's face as he mouthed 2 words. IP address. I suddenly understood. Tyler hadn't been lured away in defeat. He'd gone deliberately, having realized something about Watchman's methods. Our IP address. Tyler knew about basic networking from his computer classes. He'd gone to draw Watchman out, knowing the kidnapper would have to physically approach to take him, which meant Watchman was local. Someone who could watch Mrs. Keller's house. Someone who knew Danny's route home. Someone who could access our neighborhood unnoticed. I had to think like Tyler. If Watchman could access our cloud storage, he'd hacked our accounts. If he'd hacked our accounts, he had to have breached our network. And if he'd breached our network... I stayed up all night reviewing our router logs, searching for unauthorized access points. There, An unknown device connecting every night between 1 and 4 a.m. A pattern of connections that corresponded exactly with the appearances of the game. By morning, I traced the signal to an abandoned storage facility half a mile from our subdivision. Once a data center, now supposedly empty. I left a sealed letter for my parents explaining everything, then set out alone, armed only with my phone and a stun gun I bought after Tyler disappeared. The facility looked derelict from outside, windows boarded, chain link fence rusted, but the padlock on the gate was new. Inside, emergency lights still functioned, casting long shadows down concrete hallways. The air hummed with the unmistakable sound of servers running. I followed the noise to a room at the far end. Through the crack in the door, I could see the glow of multiple monitors. The screens showed homes, streets, schools, our entire community under surveillance. And there, tied to chairs against the far wall, Mrs. Keller, Danny, and Tyler, all alive but sedated. Standing at a central console was a man I recognized immediately. Mr. Wells, the IT administrator from our school district. The man who had access to every student's information. The man who installed the security systems in faculty homes as a courtesy. The man who ran the community's networking infrastructure. I'd known him my whole life. Quiet, helpful Mr. Wells, who fixed everyone's computer problems and lived alone in a small house near the school. I should have called the police. Should have waited for backup. But when I saw Tyler's head loll to the side, something in me snapped. I burst through the door. Stun gun raised. Wells turned, surprisingly calm. "Hello, Matt. I've been expecting you." He gestured to an empty chair beside the others. "Your brother is quite resourceful. Like you." "Why? Why?" I demanded. Stun gun still aimed at his chest. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can," he said simply. "Because people invite me into their lives, their devices, their homes, without a second thought. They want the convenience of connectivity without understanding the cost." He spread his arms, indicating the monitors. "I'm just making visible what's already happening. We're all being watched, all the time. I'm just more direct about it." As he spoke, I edged closer to Tyler, checking for a pulse. Strong, steady. He was alive. The game spread exactly as I designed it. Wells continued. People's morbid curiosity. Their willingness to engage with darkness if it's packaged as entertainment. Tyler wasn't the first to find it. Others played too. Some still are. The horror of his words sank in. This wasn't just about us. Others had played. Others had disappeared. "They're in the lower levels," Wells said, reading my expression. "The ones who weren't as interesting. The ones no one looked for hard enough." I lunged then, driving the stun gun into his side. He convulsed, collapsing against the console. I quickly bound his hands with zip ties from his workbench, then called 911, my voice breaking as I gave them the address. The aftermath was a blur. Police cars, ambulances, reporters. Mrs. Keller and Danny hospitalized but recovering. Tyler sedated but otherwise unharmed. Wells taken into custody, his facility revealing the fate of 6 other missing persons from surrounding counties. The game was a sophisticated phishing operation, combined with malware that gave Wells complete access to his victims' devices and networks. He'd been a ghost in countless systems, watching, waiting, selecting targets based on who engaged with his game. It started as a joke. A stupid, harmless joke. Or at least that's what Matt said when he showed me the screen. We were drinking beers in my basement, my place after work. Just 2 normal guys, mid-20s, average jobs, living ordinary lives in a forgettable suburban town outside Cincinnati. Matt, my childhood buddy, always loved practical jokes. He said he found a hilarious website hidden deep on the internet. A mock hitmen for hire site. The kind of edgy, tasteless prank we would have laughed at when we were 16. "You actually typed my name into that?" I asked, laughing awkwardly as I stared at the screen. A blurry photo of me, pulled from Facebook, sat beneath bold letters reading "Confirmed Target." Matt chuckled, throwing back another sip. "Relax, man. It's just some fake site. See? Eh? Professional assassins guaranteed. It's satire." I forced a smile, but something about seeing my name and address beneath the sinister wording gnawed at me. Matt slapped my shoulder, still laughing. "Dude, you're paranoid. You're paranoid. They don't even take payment. It's all a big joke. I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was funny. 2 days later, though, the joke stopped feeling funny. At first, it was just a black sedan, parked across from the marketing agency where I worked. Engine off, driver hidden behind tinted windows. Easy to dismiss as nothing. But when the car showed up 3 days in a row, always watching, never moving, I started feeling a cold twist of dread. At home, alone at night, I checked my blinds obsessively. Sleep became elusive. Shadows on walls twisting into figures crouched, watching. Matt dismissed my worry, laughing harder. You're imagining things, buddy. Relax. Then the package arrived. An unmarked box left on my doorstep. Inside, a single gleaming bullet resting atop neatly folded paper. My blood went cold as I unfolded it. A detailed printout of my daily routine. Every minute accounted for. My morning coffee run at exactly 8:15. Lunchtime walk to the deli. Gym after work. Even the Friday beer sessions with Matt. Someone had been watching, meticulously noting every detail. My hands shook, bile rising sharply. This wasn't satire. This was real. I confronted Matt that night, furious, terrified. I swear, man, it was just some joke site. I didn't pay anyone, but you gave them everything, I shouted. He stammered apologies, but my panic drowned them out. Who else knew about this? He looked away. No one. I swear. No one. I swear. I didn't believe him. Days dragged by, everyone heavier than the last. The cars kept appearing, always different. Black sedans, silver SUVs, white vans. But always lingering, always watching. My paranoia skyrocketed. Police dismissed it as probable pranksters, barely concealing their smirks. I bought extra locks, a security system, a handgun I barely knew how to use. Sleep was shattered nightly by nightmares. Masked figures slipping silently through windows, knives in hand. Bullets whispered into my ears. Then came the text message from an unknown number. Time almost up. Cold sweat dripped down my spine. Fingers shaking too much to reply. Next morning, I found another package outside. This one, heavier. Carefully, pulse racing. I opened it. Photographs, dozens of them. Candid shots of me, everywhere. At work, grocery shopping, asleep in bed. My chest tightened. Someone had been inches away, watching silently, breathing softly. Beneath the photos, another note. Tonight, midnight. I dialed Matt, frantic. Come over now. When he arrived, face pale, I showed him the photos. He stared, horrified, voice trembling. We should call the cops again. I shook my head bitterly. They think we're crazy. They think we're crazy. As we spoke, my security camera notification pinged. Motion detected at the back door. I froze. Matt saw my reaction, whispering fearfully, "What is it?" I opened the feed on my phone. A masked figure stood calmly at the back porch, staring directly into the camera lens. Silent, still, terrifying. I grabbed my handgun, sweat slicking the grip. "Call the police, Matt. Now!" Matt dialed frantically. As I turned back, the figure was gone. A sudden crash shattered the living room window. Glass sprayed inward. Matt screamed. I rushed toward the noise, heart pounding painfully. The room was dark, streetlights casting grotesque shadows. "Matt?" My voice shook. Silence. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Someone moved in the darkness, breath heavy behind a mask. A voice low, cold. "You shouldn't mess around on the dark web." I raised the gun shakily, barely remembering how to aim. "Get out! Police are coming!" The masked man laughed softly, mockingly. "You think I don't know response times?" A blur of movement. I fired wildly, gunshots echoing painfully. He lunged, knocking the weapon away. Pain exploded in my ribs as fists struck brutally. Blood filled my mouth, vision darkening. He whispered calmly, inches from my ear. "Consider this your final warning. Another sharp blow." Everything faded. I woke in the hospital, police hovering grimly. Matt sat nearby, bruised face pale. The cops explained they'd arrived minutes after neighbors called about gunshots. The attacker was gone, leaving only shattered glass and bloodstains. Matt stared miserably. This is all my fault. No arrests were made. The deep website vanished without a trace. Life became an endless loop of fearful vigilance. Every unknown face a threat. Matt withdrew, guilt eroding our friendship irreparably. Weeks later, still bandaged and shaken, another envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a single photo, taken from inside my bedroom, me sleeping. On the back, scrawled in neat handwriting, "You're alive, because I allowed it." I moved cities, changed names, abandoned everything familiar. Paranoia became permanent, a scar deeper than physical wounds. Every quiet night, I lay awake, haunted by his masked face, his whispered voice, knowing he's still out there, watching, waiting, and someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now, he'll return. Because it was never a joke, it was always real. And some games you can't ever stop playing. I yanked off my headset, heart pounding. My username, Battlescribe, was generic, tied to a burner email. How did he know my name? I logged off, the apartment's silence pressing in, broken only by the hum of my fridge. My place was small. A couch, a cluttered desk, photos of my wife, Jenna, and our son, Max, on the wall. I checked the locks, the deadbolt cold under my fingers, and tried to sleep. But Viperk's voice lingered, sharp as a blade. The next day, I brushed it off as a troll's bluff. Kids threw around threats online all the time. I taught my classes, joked with Jenna over dinner, and tucked Max in. But late that night, my phone buzzed with an email from an anonymous account. The subject, Eric Thompson, 1427 Maple Drive. My breath caught. The message contained a link to a deep web doxing site, one I'd heard about in tech forums. I hesitated, then clicked. My full name, address, social security number, and bank details stared back, alongside photos. Jenna at the grocery store, Max on the playground, me leaving school. A post below read, "He's yours. Make him pay." My hands shook as I shut the laptop. The apartment felt exposed, the windows too thin. A car idled outside, its engine a low growl, headlights slicing through the curtains. I peered out, nothing but an empty street, the car gone. I woke Jenna, showed her the sight. Her face paled, her nails digging into my arm. "Who did this?" she whispered. I didn't know, but Viperk's threat echoed in my skull. We called the police. Officer Hayes, a grizzled cop who coached Max's soccer team, came over. He jotted notes, his pen scratching loudly. "Could be a prank," he said, but his eyes lingered on the photos. "Change your passwords, freeze your accounts. We'll look into it." He left, promising a cybercrime unit referral. I installed new locks, set up a cheap security camera, and barely slept. The camera's red light, blinking like an unblinking eye. 2 days later, my email flooded with spam. Hundreds of messages, some with my own photos, others with threats. We're watching. My phone rang from unknown numbers, silent when I answered, just faint breathing. At school, I found a note slipped into my lesson plans. "You can't hide." The handwriting was jagged, unfamiliar. I scanned the halls, kids laughing, oblivious, but every face felt like a mask. Jenna took Max to her mom's, her voice tight with fear. Jenna took Max to her mom's, her voice tight with... "Fix this, Eric," she said, the car's taillights fading down the street. I dug into Viperk's, searching gaming forums and Discord logs. A friend, Tara, a coder who modded Starforge, helped me trace his account. It led to a VPN, untraceable, but she found posts on a hacking forum under his alias, bragging about doxing loudmouths who crossed him. His motive was clear: control, revenge, the thrill of ruining lives. Tara warned me to lay low, but that night my camera app pinged. The feed showed a figure in a hoodie outside, face shadowed, spray painting my door. The paint glistened red, spelling, "Found you." I grabbed a baseball bat, heart hammering, and checked the door. The paint was wet, the air thick with its chemical tang. Footsteps crunched in the gravel lot, fading fast. I called Hayes, who found no prints, no witnesses. Could be kids, he said, but his jaw was tight. The next night, the camera caught the figure again, closer, holding a knife, its blade catching the streetlight. He carved something into my mailbox, slow and deliberate, then vanished. I checked it at dawn. My social security number, etched deep. I stopped sleeping, my eyes burning from staring at the camera feed. Tara hacked the doxing site, pulling my info down. But it reappeared hours later with new photos. Met the school parking lot yesterday. Viperks was close, maybe in town. I bought a VPN, changed my number, but the emails kept coming. Now with audio files. My voice, clipped from game chats, warped into pleas for help. One file was just Max laughing, recorded at the park. My blood ran cold. Friday night, alone, the power cut out. The apartment plunged into dark. The camera feed, dead. A gee thump came from the porch, heavy, like a body hitting wood. I gripped the bat, sweat slicking my palms, and crept to the window. A package sat outside, wrapped in brown paper. My name scrolled in red. The sweet smell of decay seeped through the cracks. I didn't touch it. Called Hayes instead. He opened it. Rotting meat. A note inside. Your turn. The climax came at 3 a.m. My phone lit up. A video call from an unknown ID. I answered, hands shaking. A distorted face filled the screen. Viperks. His voice filtered, mocking. Look outside, Eric. The camera panned to my school. The playground. Max's slide glowing under moonlight. I'm here, he hissed. I ran to my car, bat in hand, and sped to the school. Hayes on the line. The lot was empty, but a knife was stabbed into the slide. A photo of Max pinned beneath it. Hayes' team swept the area, found nothing. Viperk's VPN bounced across servers, untraceable. I moved Jenna and Max to a safe house, quit teaching, and rented a new place in Ann Arbor. But last week, a USB drive arrived. No address. It held a video. Me, sleeping in my old apartment, filmed from above. Days before the power cut, the camera lingered on my face. A knife hovering inches away. A text file read, I'm closer than you think. Viperks wanted to break me, to prove he could own my life. He's still out there, his fingers on my data, my family, my fear. Every notification, every shadow feels like him waiting to call again. The new apartment's locks are strong, but the silence is louder. I keep the bat close, check the cameras, but I know Viperks is watching, his next move already loaded. My name is Mark. By day, I'm a data analyst, crunching numbers in a sterile office. By night, or more accurately, on weekends, I was an urban explorer. Urbix, we call it. The thrill of stepping into forgotten places, peeling back layers of time, photographing the decay. It was an addiction. I wasn't reckless. I had my gear, my rules, and I had void echoes. Void echoes was a deep web forum, a shadowy corner of the internet where serious explorers shared whispers of untouched locations. Places not yet ravaged by vandals or documented on 1,000 Instagram feeds. Access was by invitation only. I'd lurked for months, finally earning enough trust to get coordinates to a few minor sites. Then, Nick's shadow posted. Nick's was a legend on the forum. Their finds always pristine, their information impeccable, though their identity was a complete mystery. The post was titled, Asylum of Echoing Halls, Time Capsule. The description was tantalizing. A sprawling sanatorium complex, supposedly abandoned since a fire in the late 70s, deep in the remote Blackwood State Forest. Power still partially active in some wings, Nix wrote. Minimal decay, almost zero vandalism, like they just walked out and locked the doors. Coordinates were provided. My heart hammered. This was the Urbex equivalent of finding a unicorn. I did my due diligence. Old county maps showed a Blackwood Valley retreat, but details were scarce. I told my roommate, Jen, I was going on a solo camping and photography trip upstate. Deliberately vague. The deep web aspect, the asylum, those were secrets best kept. The drive was 6 hours, the last two on crumbling logging roads that tested my old Jeep's suspension. The GPS signal died 10 miles out. I navigated by Nix's meticulous directions, the forest pressing in, ancient and silent. Finally, a rusted, barely visible gate, half swallowed by overgrown ivy, marked an old service entrance. Beyond it, a rutted track. And then, the asylum. It loomed out of the trees, a gothic monstrosity of gray stone and boarded-up windows, its silhouette stark against the bruised twilight sky. It was magnificent and deeply unsettling. The perimeter fence was newer than I expected. Chain link topped with coils of razor wire in several sections. Not exactly welcoming. Nix's post had mentioned a discreet entry point. I found it. A section of fence pulled back, just enough for a person to slip through, cleverly concealed by a thicket of thorny bushes. As I approached the main building, a chill unrelated to the evening air snaked down my spine. Fresh tire tracks, wide and heavy-duty, were visible on the damp earth of a barely discernible access road leading around the back. Not old, not overgrown, recent. My internal alarm bells, usually silent on these excursions, began a faint, tinny ping. Nix had described a basement access point. I found it. A heavy steel door, set low in the foundation, partially hidden by overgrown weeds. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of profound blackness inviting me in. The air that wafted out wasn't the expected scent of dust, mold, and decay. It was cleaner, with a faint, almost imperceptible hum, like distant machinery or electricity. Flashlight in hand, heart thudding, I slipped inside. The basement was a labyrinth of stone corridors, and it wasn't untouched. Modern conduit ran along some walls, new-looking junction boxes, a faint smell of something acrid, like industrial cleaner, and stale coffee, hung in the air. Then I saw it, a small, black dome security camera, discreetly mounted in a shadowy corner, its lens a dark, unblinking eye. But the allure of the asylum, Nix's promise of a time capsule, was a powerful drug. I pushed deeper, moving as silently as possible. I heard a muffled sound, voices, low and distinct, coming from a larger room further down the corridor. My flashlight beam found a grimy window set high in a heavy wooden door. I carefully wiped away a patch of grime. What I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't a decaying ward or a forgotten operating theater. It was a makeshift command center. Folding tables held laptops, their screens glowing. Detailed maps were pinned to the walls. And there were men, 4 of them dressed in dark utilitarian clothing. One had a pistol holstered on his hip. They were focused, alert, their faces hard. They weren't ghosts. They weren't caretakers. They looked like they belonged there. Before I could process, before I could retreat, a voice behind me, cold and flat, said, "Lost your way, friend." I spun around. A 5th man stood there, blocking the corridor, effectively trapping me. He was tall, built like a brick wall, his eyes like chips of ice. He wasn't smiling. I thought this place was abandoned, I stammered, my mind racing. Just exploring. Exploring. He took a step closer. Not much to see here for explorers. Unless Nix sent you. The name hit me like a physical blow. Nix. This wasn't a shared secret. It was a lure. Void echoes, Nix shadowed. It was all a sophisticated trap. Maybe they used the form to identify and neutralize anyone who got too close to whatever this operation was. My pristine asylum was their fortified headquarters. Adrenaline surged, hot and sharp. There was no talking my way out of this. I feigned a stumble, then lunged, shoving past him with all my strength, and sprinted back down the corridor, my backpack bouncing wildly. Shouts erupted behind me. "Get him!" Footsteps pounded in pursuit. I burst out of the steel door into the fading light, gasping for air, and scrambled through the gap in the fence, razor wire tearing at my jacket. I didn't look back. I heard a sharp crack, a gunshot, echoing through the trees. It wasn't aimed to hit, I don't think, just to terrify, to punctuate their message. My Jeep started on the first try, a small miracle. I tore down the rutted track, branches scraping against the paintwork, not daring to slow until I hit paved road. Then driving for hours, the image of those hard faces, that cold, fortified asylum, burned into my retinas. Back in the relative safety of my apartment, the first thing I did was wipe my hard drive, then physically destroy it. Void echoes, Nix shadow, the entire deep web persona, gone. The thrill of Urbix was dead, replaced by a gnawing, visceral fear. I'd stumbled into a hornet's nest. Drug runners, arms dealers, Some kind of paramilitary group. I'd never know, and I didn't want to. The asylum of echoing halls. It echoed, all right, not with the whispers of the past, but with the very real threat of a present I was never meant to see. Nick's shadow. Were they one of those men, a digital spider luring flies into a web, or another explorer, caught and forced to betray their own kind? I'll carry that question, and the chilling certainty that some untouched places are kept that way by people who will do anything to protect their secrets for the rest of my life. The deep web promised hidden wonders. It delivered a glimpse into a darkness far more tangible and terrifying than any ghost story. The alley stank of piss and Chinese takeout. My terrier Bean tugged toward the dumpster. Typical Tuesday night. Then the man in the gray hoodie appeared, his movements quick and feral. He pressed something into a hollow brick near the fire escape. A dead drop. I'd read about them in spy novels. Bean growled. The man froze, head cocked like a bird of prey. I mumbled, sorry, and hurried home. My pulse throbbing in my ears. The brick haunted me. At 3 a.m., I Googled how to access the deep web. The forum loaded slowly. Text glowing green on black. Dead drop directory. Verified coordinates only. Users posted GPS pins and codes. One entry burned into my retinas. Grid 40.7128 degree and 74.006 degree W passcode. 913. Product. Eyes. My alley. My birthday. Bean whined as I pulled on gloves. The brick creaked open. Inside, a USB drive taped to a Ziploc bag of contact lenses. No, iris scans. Floating in saline. The drive's only file was a spreadsheet. The client's column listed handles like at Night Watcher and at Skin Collector. Product entries made my stomach twist. Retina, 12 ec. Cornea, fresh, 12 ec. Cornea, fresh 20K. A car idled at the alley's mouth. Headlights off. Detective Alvarez snorted. USB. Probably college kids. He pocketed the drive. We'll check it. That night, Bean barked at shadows. The floorboards creaked. Wrong. My laptop flickered awake. The spreadsheet reopened itself. New entry added. At Curious George. Status. Pending. Product. Tongue. I vomited in the sink. The forum DMs exploded. At Night Watcher, herder shopping. At Skin Collector, he'll pay double if you film the extraction. Alvarez's number went straight to voicemail. Bean's whine became a shriek. The bedroom window slid open. Mr. Gray, the hoodie man, sat at my kitchen table, peeling an apple with a boning knife. You took my price list? His voice was calm, teacher patient. Now I take your curiosity. The knife glinted. Don't worry, they pay extra if you're awake. Bean lunged. The knife flashed. I woke cuffed to a motel bed, IV drip in my arm. Mr. Gray hummed as he sterilized tools. Organs spoil. But parts? The dark web's Amazon. Alvarez badge glinted on the nightstand. Cops are my best customers, Mr. Gray said. Who else needs fresh eyes? The door burst open. Bean, bloody but alive, latched onto his thigh. They found Alvarez's body in the river, eyes missing. The USB vanished. Mr. Gray's trial starts next month. But tonight, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a mason jar. The hand's growl rattled the glass. Floating in brine, 2 tongues, mine, and a new note. Paid in full. Thanks for the business. At Night Watcher. My name is Leo. I work a mind-numbingly dull data entry job, so my evenings are usually spent chasing digital rabbits down internet wormholes. Not the truly dark stuff. Mostly just forums about unsolved mysteries, cryptography puzzles, that kind of thing. One rainy Tuesday, bored out of my skull, I stumbled onto a public pasted-in site accessible via a Tor browser, one of those ephemeral text dumps. Most of it was gibberish, code snippets, manifestos. But one post caught my eye. It was a solid block of heavily encrypted text. No title, no explanation. Just raw Cipher text. For most people, it would have been an instant click away. For me, it was a challenge. I've always had a knack for patterns, a mild obsession with codes. I copied the text, saved it. My own little Everest. The encryption was brutal, layered. Standard algorithms were useless. This was custom and clever. For a week, it was my secret project. I threw every decryption technique I knew at it. Ran custom scripts, lost hours of sleep. It felt like chipping away at a mountain with a teaspoon. Then, a breakthrough, a tiny crack in the facade. I isolated a repeating pattern. Managed to decrypt a single short phrase. Sparrow Street. My heart gave a little flutter. Sparrow Street was just a few blocks from my apartment building. Coincidence, probably. But it spurred me on. The next fragment to yield was a date. 10/17. Last month. The rest of the message finally crumbled a few nights later, after a marathon session fueled by stale coffee and sheer stubbornness. It wasn't a manifesto or a secret code. It was a list, names, addresses, and dates. About 20 entries. My eyes scanned down, a detached curiosity quickly turning to a cold dread. One entry leaped out, stark and horrifying. Henderson, Eleanor, 12 Sparrow Street, Apt 4B, 10/17. Status, closed. Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor from across the hall. A sweet elderly woman who always had a kind word, who'd lived in our building for 30 years. She'd vanished a month ago, October 17th. The police had found her apartment empty. No sign of struggle, no note. It was like she'd just evaporated. Now, her name was on this list. Status, closed. A chill snaked down my spine. So cold it felt like ice water in my veins. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the other names. Some were unfamiliar. Others when I tentatively searched them online alongside their listed towns. The addresses were from all over the state, some further. Brought up news articles. Missing persons. Unexplained deaths. Accidental overdoses in quiet suburban homes. And the dates on the list, they matched. They always matched. They always matched the day the person was last seen, or the day they were found. This wasn't a puzzle. This was a ledger, a hit list, a record of disposal. The air in my small apartment suddenly felt thick, suffocating. Who posted this? Why? Was it a boast? A set of instructions? The encryption wasn't just to be clever, it was to hide something monstrous, and I had dragged it into the light. My mind raced. The paste bean was anonymous, the original poster untraceable through normal means. But they'd know the encryption. They might even have ways of knowing if someone had accessed or tried to decrypt the raw text. Paranoia, a seed I didn't even know had been planted, began to sprout. Every creak in my old apartment building sounded like footsteps outside my door. The blinking cursor on my monitor seemed to watch me. I started obsessively checking the paste bin site. The original post was still there, untouched. But 2 days later, a new encrypted message appeared from what looked like the same anonymous source, using a slightly modified cipher. It took me less time to crack this one. The structure was similar. More names, more addresses, more dates, and a new status category, pending. My blood turned to ice. One of the pending entries was for a local journalist who'd been writing a series on unsolved disappearances in the state. His address was listed. The date next to his name was 3 days from now. I felt like I was drowning. What could I do? Go to the police? Officer, I found this encrypted hit list on the deep web, and I think my missing neighbor is on it. And also this journalist is next. They'd think I was a crank, or worse, somehow involved. The evidence was digital, ephemeral, sourced from the shadowy corners of the internet. I had to warn him. The journalist. His name was David Carmichael. I found his work email, hands shaking. I composed an anonymous message, vague but urgent, warning him he was in danger, telling him to leave his apartment, to go somewhere public. I didn't mention the list. I didn't mention the deep web. I just said I'd overheard something. I hit send, my heart pounding. Did he get it? Would he believe it? The next 3 days were agony. I barely slept. I kept checking the news, expecting the worst. On the third day, the date listed for Carmichael. A small article appeared online. Local investigative journalist hospitalized after suspicious fall. He was in critical condition. It hadn't been a disappearance. It had been an accident. The list had been updated. Carmichael, David. Status, closed. I vomited. The pending had become closed with chilling efficiency. Whoever these people were, they were professionals. They were ghosts. Then, I saw it. The paste bin had updated again. A short, new encrypted string. My fingers flew across the keyboard, my own decryption script running. It was a single line. Observer, 182 Oak Street, Apt 3. Status. Query. 182 Oak Street, apartment 3. That was my address. My apartment. My name wasn't there. Just observer. And query. They knew. They knew someone had cracked their code. They knew someone was watching. And now, they were watching me. The word query felt like a death sentence hanging by a thread. Were they trying to figure out who I was? Or was it a subtle warning? A test? I haven't slept in my apartment since. I'm writing this from a cheap motel room 2 states away. My laptop wiped. My old life, a smoldering ruin. I don't know who observer is on their list, but I know it's me. The police wouldn't understand. They couldn't protect me from something so nebulous, so pervasive. The deep web isn't just a place for curious minds and harmless puzzles. It's a place where real monsters lurk, where names on a list become statistics, and where deciphering the wrong message can turn your life into a waking nightmare. The Cipher is still out there, and they're still querying. I've always been fascinated by horror stories. Not the mainstream ones with predictable jump scares and CGI monsters, but the kind that crawl under your skin and stay there. The ones that make you check the locks twice before bed. As an aspiring writer with a day job in insecurity, I spent most nights hunched over my keyboard, trying to craft the perfect horror story while my own manuscripts collected digital dust in publishers' inboxes. That's how I found myself exploring the deeper corners of the internet one rainy Tuesday night in October. I'd exhausted the usual horror forums and subreddits, and nothing was sparking that creative flame. 3 whiskeys deep, I fired up my VPN and Tor browser, tools I normally used for work, and descended into the darker recesses of the web. It took 2 hours of clicking through increasingly obscure links before I found it. A minimalist black page with crimson text. Personalized nightmares, the header announced. We craft your perfect horror story. $50 Bitcoin, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Beneath was a simple claim that caught my attention. We know what truly frightens you, even if you don't. Most deep web services were scams, I knew that. But the reviews, if they were genuine, seemed enthusiastic. Too real. How did they know? Haven't slept since reading mine. Part of me recognized the marketing technique, but the writer in me was intrigued by the concept. A story tailored specifically to my fears. That could be the inspiration I needed. That could be the inspiration I needed. I filled out their questionnaire, which asked surprisingly mundane questions about my daily routine, childhood memories, and general preferences. Nothing that seemed particularly probing or personal. I included my email address, a burner of course, and sent my payment into the digital void. 3 days passed. I'd almost forgotten about my impulse purchase when the email arrived at 3:17 a.m. No subject line, just an attachment titled, "Your Story, Alexander." Python, PDF. I hesitated before opening it, not out of fear. I was still skeptical this would be anything but generic horror fare. But because I'd never told them, my name was Alexander. The PDF contained a single story, professionally formatted, titled, The Observer. It began innocuously enough. Alexander Harper starts each morning the same way. Snooze, alarm twice. Shower, exactly 7 minutes. Coffee, in the chipped blue mug his sister gave him for Christmas 3 years ago. He sits by his apartment window, overlooking Pine Street, watching the world while remaining unseen. I nearly dropped my phone. The mug beside my laptop was indeed blue, chipped along the rim. A gift from my sister Elaine 3 Christmases ago. My apartment overlooked Pine Street. These were specific details I hadn't shared in the questionnaire. With growing unease, I continued reading. He doesn't know when the observation became mutual. Doesn't realize that while he watches others, someone watches him. They know about the scar on his left shoulder from the bicycle accident when he was 12. They know he takes his coffee with 2 sugars but tells everyone he drinks it black because it sounds more sophisticated. They know about the rejection letter from Crimson Gate Publishing that he keeps in his desk drawer, rereading on nights when self-doubt creeps in. My hand instinctively went to my shoulder, fingers tracing the raised line of the scar. The rejection letter from Crimson Gate was indeed in my desk drawer. I had never mentioned it online, let alone in their questionnaire. My heart pounded as I read on. Alexander believes he's careful online, uses a VPN, clears his cookies, but digital footprints aren't the only kind we leave behind. Sometimes, the person who knows you best is the one you've never noticed, like the barista who makes his coffee every Tuesday and Thursday, the one whose name he never bothers to learn, though she knows his order by heart. Or the woman in apartment 3B whose bedroom window faces his own. The one who watches him watching others. I jerk my gaze toward my uncurtained window, suddenly conscious of the darkness outside and the perfect reflection it created of my illuminated room. Anyone could be watching. I closed the blinds with trembling hands before returning to the story. The tale continued, describing my daily routines with disturbing accuracy. From the Thai takeout I ordered every Friday night, to the sleeping pills in my bathroom cabinet. It knew about the unfinished manuscript on my laptop. A horror story about a man slowly losing his grip on reality. It even referenced the recurring nightmare I'd had since childhood, being followed through an endless corridor by something I couldn't see, but could feel breathing down my neck. As the story progressed, it described Alexander noticing small things out of place in his apartment. A book shelved incorrectly, his laptop open when he thought he closed it, the shower still wet when he returned home, his growing paranoia, his increasing isolation, all written as if these events had already occurred, though they hadn't, until I realized some of them had. The book on my shelf. Hadn't I placed my copy of House of Leaves on the top shelf last night? Now it sat on my desk. And my laptop. I always closed it before bed, a security habit, but it had been open when I awoke this morning. I blamed my late-night whiskey for making me forgetful. The story's final passages described Alexander finding a hidden camera in his smoke detector, then another behind his bathroom mirror, discovering that his entire private life had been broadcast on a deep website called The Glass House, where paying viewers could watch unsuspecting people in their most private moments. The story ended with a single line that made my blood freeze. And now, the story becomes real. I slammed my laptop closed, heart hammering against my ribs. This was an elaborate prank. It had to be. Someone had hacked my accounts, my cameras, a colleague from work maybe, an ex with technical skills and a grudge. I spent the next hour searching my apartment, balancing on chairs to examine every smoke detector, light fixture, and vent. I found nothing, but that didn't calm my racing mind. Modern cameras could be the size of a pinhead. Sleep was impossible. As dawn broke, I called in sick to work and continued my investigation, eventually turning my attention to my devices. That's when I discovered the backdoor program in my laptop. Sophisticated spyware that had granted someone remote access to my webcam, microphone, and files for approximately 6 months. 6 months, half a year of someone watching me, listening to my most private conversations, reading my unpublished writing, witnessing moments no one should see. The violation made me physically ill. But who? And why me? Why? The answer came later that day in the form of another email. Enjoyed your story, Alex? For an additional $200, I'll tell you where the other cameras are. For $500, I'll tell you who I am. You've been an excellent protagonist so far. Such authentic fear. Such genuine paranoia. The subscribers to your channel particularly enjoy your late-night writing sessions. The way you talk to yourself, working out dialogue. Very meta. Would you like to know how many people have been watching you? My hands shook as I replied. Who are you? The response came minutes later. Check your inbox from March 15 last year. I scrolled through thousands of emails, finally finding the date in question. There was only one message, a submission confirmation from an online horror magazine. I'd sent them a short story titled The Glass House, about a voyeur who becomes the subject of surveillance himself. My own concept, now weaponized against me. The story had been rejected by Julie Winters, assistant editor. Julie, the name triggered a memory, the barista mentioned in my personalized horror story, the one whose name I never bothered to learn. But that wasn't entirely true. I knew her name from her tag, Julie. She'd served me coffee twice weekly for over a year, always trying to engage me in conversation while I stared at my phone or laptop, dismissing her with minimal responses. I'd never made the connection between Julie the barista and Jay Winters from the rejection email. Why would I? Editors at prestigious magazines don't work side jobs at coffee shops, except when they're not actually editors, but aspiring writers themselves, working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Aspiring writers who receive hundreds of manuscripts from entitled men who can't handle rejection. Another email arrived. Figured it out yet? You're not the only writer with a vivid imagination, Alex. After your fourth email demanding I reconsider your submission. After you somehow found my personal email address. I became curious about the man so convinced of his own brilliance. What I found was a mediocre writer with an interesting life. Your obliviousness to the world around you while you observe others. It was literary irony too perfect to ignore. The surveillance was research. The story was just the beginning. I have enough material for an entire novel now. The Observer, coming next fall from Crimson Gate Publishing. They're very interested in psychological horror based on true events. Consider this your contributor's copy. Attached was a complete manuscript. My life twisted into a horror narrative, ending with the protagonist's psychological breakdown after discovering he's been watched. The final scene described him being taken to a psychiatric facility, still insisting that his rejected story had been stolen, that he was being monitored, that everything happening was part of an elaborate plot against him. The perfect, unreliable narrator. Who would believe him? Who would believe me? I called the police anyway, showed them the emails, the spyware on my laptop. They took a report, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes when I couldn't produce the original personalized horror story PDF. It had vanished from my downloads folder, and the email containing it now showed no attachments. The officer suggested changing my passwords and seeing a therapist about my anxiety. Julie disappeared. The coffee shop had no record of an employee by that name. The rejection email from Jay Winters no longer existed in my inbox. The publishing house had never heard of The Observer or Julie Winters. Every digital trace was gone. Only my certainty remained. That was 2 months ago. I've moved apartments twice since then. Abandoned my online presence, purchased counter-surveillance equipment that sweeps for cameras and microphones daily. But sometimes, I still feel watched. In those moments, I imagine Julie somewhere, typing my precise reactions into her manuscript, adding another chapter to the horror story that is now my life. And sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if there ever was a Julie at all. If perhaps the personalized horror story service delivered exactly what it promised. A narrative that found my deepest fears, of insignificance, of creative failure, of losing my grip on reality, and turned them against me. Because that's what truly terrifying stories do. They don't end when you close the book. They become real. The connection is severed. But the unease, it persists, doesn't it? 7 glimpses into the abyss, where the virtual bleeds into the horrifyingly real. Did any particular tale make you question the safety of your own digital footprint? The true terror of the deep web is not just what you find, but what might find you. And the final chilling twist is often the realization that the screen is a two-way mirror. Which story's digital ghost will linger in your cache tonight? Unload your anxieties, your theories about these dark web denizens in the comments below. Your experiences are valuable data points in this ongoing nightmare. If this journey into the web's underbelly has captivated your darker curiosities, then subscribe to Nightmare True Horror. Click that like button as if it were a lifeline back to the surface web, and help others navigate to these chilling chronicles. Until our paths cross again in the endless scroll of the unknown, log off. But remember, the darkness is always online. Sleep soundly. If you dare to trust your devices again,